around us every day. It's the new, the unusual, the important, the events which affect and shape our lives. And most people in Australia get their news from television.
Hello and welcome to Channel 7 Perth. Every night of the year at 6 o'clock, the people of Western Australia get their news live from these studios.
Bringing you that half hour of news takes a whole team of people all day, because news happens all the time, all around the world, 24 hours of every day. It's up to the award-winning news team here at Channel 7 to deliver the most accurate and up-to-date news service available.
So come and see how it's done as we take you on a tour of the Channel 7 news operation. The television newsroom is a hive of activity from early in the morning until the bulletin goes to air. The Chief of Staff, or COS, starts his day at 6 a.m, checking a detailed diary of the day's local events, talking to other newsrooms around the country, reading faxes and emails, making phone calls to police, fire and ambulance services, and touching base with contacts for any stories which may be brewing that day. He then briefs journalists and camera operators who he's assigned to each story. Each morning, the COS has a meeting with the news editor, the producer, the assistant producer and the sports producer. They decide which local stories should be pursued and select the stories from around Australia and around the world which will go into the 6 o'clock bulletin. Very often, stories chosen at the beginning of the day will not make it into the evening news because news is constantly changing. During the production meeting, award-winning journalist Alison Fan is working on her story for the day.
Yeah, it's going to have to be cut back by about 20 seconds, so if we just drop that last grab, that would be perfect.
A TV journalist's job always starts with the basics of a story. What happened, where it occurred, when it took place, why it's important, and how it affects our viewers. All 7 news reporters have to put together the facts of a story, decide where they need to go to get pictures, and arrange interviews with people significant to the story.
Yeah, 12:30 in Highgate.
It's very important that wherever possible, they get both sides of a story. So at the end of the day, the report is accurate and fair. While Alison is organising information for her story, Rick is preparing for a news update.
This is the studio where Susannah and I present the news and news updates. It's really just a big room with one set for 7 News and another for Today Tonight. Robotic cameras are used to shoot the bulletin and we can watch the stories from TV monitors on our desk. When all the lights are on and we're all made up, it can look quite glamorous. But the business of news is anything but. Sue and I spend far more time in the newsroom than we do down here in the studio. Throughout the day, I'll write a number of news updates and then present them. To do that, I need to get all the information available on stories we're following. I talk to journalists assigned to specific stories and to the news producer, the person in charge of how the day's bulletin is put together.
7 News, Howard Gretton.
The producer looks at all available stories from overseas, other parts of Australia and here in Perth, and then decides which are the most important or interesting for West Australian viewers. He also reads local and national papers, listens to radio news bulletins, checks overseas stories on electronic bulletin boards, and speaks to local reporters already on the road covering stories.
Alison and a camera operator have now been out on the road for a few hours. They've recorded interviews using a high-grade digital camera. They're now recording Alison's piece to camera for tonight's story. All the pictures and interviews recorded will later be edited onto a master tape for Alison's finished story package.
But the dead man's family was not happy with today's jury decision. Outside the court, there were angry scenes as members of the family threatened cameramen.
As always, it's a busy day for the news team back at the Channel 7 studios.
Next time that'll be good. I need some pictures of a breaking story for my next news update, but there's no time to drive the pictures back to the station. So the COS is arranging for a news cruiser to be sent on site. The news cruiser is a special vehicle equipped with a microwave transmitter and a directional mast, enabling pictures and sound to be sent back to the studio. Once the cruiser is in position, the technician radios back to the station to coordinate frequencies and then feeds the vision to the news transfer suite.
The Channel 7 helicopter is another important piece of news gathering equipment. It's used to get images from difficult places and provide up-to-the-minute pictures on late-breaking stories. A camera operator travels aboard the chopper and is secured by a special harness so he can sit in the open doorway and shoot the vision. The pilot uses a monitor to view what the camera operator is shooting and manoeuvre his chopper into the best possible position.
When Channel 7 news crews have to visit remote places in our vast state, they take portable satellite news gathering or SNG equipment. The device is flown to the location in pieces and reassembled by a technician.
Yes, we'll bring you those
7
pictures
reporter
first.
Paul Caddack
Yes.
and his crew travelled to Christmas Island to cover the crisis of the asylum seekers on board the Norwegian ship the Tampa. They were there for 2 weeks, and because they had the SNG gear, they were able to send news-breaking pictures of an astonishing international story to TV stations all around the world.
With the orders given, the military operation here reached fever pitch, a rapid airlift of supplies the boat people would need for their next journey.
As news time approaches, sports reporter Adrian Barrich is discussing what he's going to talk about in tonight's live cross into the news.
Sport is a very important part of people's lives, so obviously it's also a very important part of our news coverage. Here in the 7 newsroom we have our own specialist sports department, sports producer, team of dedicated sports reporters and, of course, sports presenters.
Just like mainstream news, big sporting events are sent to Channel 7 Perth via satellite throughout the day. Now, one of our jobs is to monitor those events and make sure we select the most interesting and exciting sporting contests from around Australia and the world to include in our nightly sports segment. And I'd better get back to it.
Alison has completed her 1-minute script for tonight's news. The news librarian has tracked down vision to be used in the finished story. The story's been checked by the producer, and now Alison is recording her voice onto digital mini disc. She gives the script and camera tapes to a video editor. The editor will use the best shots from the tape and Alison's instructions on the script to create an edited story. Editors have to work quickly and under a great deal of pressure to get every story ready for 6 o'clock.
While reporters, editors and producers are working frantically upstairs, down in the control room things are getting really busy. Here the director and his crew are preparing an opener for the bulletin. This will include vision from the day's most important stories and is like the TV equivalent of a news headline. If you're interested in the opener, you'll stay to watch the news. Throughout the day, the control room staff have been getting information ready for use in tonight's bulletin. All the graphics in Channel 7's news, like the pictures you see behind Rick and I when we introduce stories, and graphic information in reporters' packages, are created by our own team of artists in the graphics department.
It's our designers who also produce the graphics you see every night in my weather segment. You know, weather's very important to our viewers, and I'm in touch daily with the Weather Bureau to bring you the latest up-to-date information every evening. At the end of the day, the artists here work very fast to turn the latest weather maps into clear, easy-to-read television graphics. And while they're flat out in here, the pace elsewhere is just as frantic.
It's getting close to 6. While Jeff is making last-minute preparations for his weather segment, Susannah and I are about to move into the studio. As we do, Basil is checking his sports scripts, and upstairs in the newsroom, reporters and editors are still putting the finishing touches to their stories. Some won't be finished until after the bulletin is on air. And finally, it is.
Rick Ardon, Susannah Carr, Basil Zempilis, and Jeff Newman.
Tonight, Air Force emergency. A pilot forced to eject as a jet crashes near Perth.
Armed guards ordered onto Australian airliners in a terror alert.
And lessons from a tragedy. A father's plea after his children die at sea.
You're watching 7 News.
So that's a day in the life of the Channel 7 News team, a day that's repeated every single day of the year.
Susannah's still got evening news breaks to present before her day is over, but in news the day never actually ends. A night cameraman will be out tonight covering stories for all the stations. And if a big story breaks, the COS will take the call at 2 in the morning and get crews on the road.
Tomorrow's bulletin is already underway. We hope you've enjoyed this look at Channel 7 News.
And we'll see you all tonight at 6.